So welcome everyone on a lovely sunny day, a bit nippy this morning when we started. Pleased you could all make it to our mental health hui. For those of you who don't know the background to this, we have Carol and I have a community liaison meeting, a networking opportunity. A lot of groups have been saying that people were presenting with mental health issues. And so we had a wee information session about how to get into the system and the formal process and that sort of thing. And then they said, well, it'd be nice to hear from some people who are actually out there doing the work and have those connections and questions. So this is the follow-up session to that. Just a bit of housekeeping to begin with. The toilets, probably the most important thing, because that's probably where you'll be dashing to. Through the doors that you came in, if you just stand in the doorway, look straight ahead, then slightly to the right, the male and female toilets are right there. If we do have to evacuate the building, just come exit out either of those doors, but you'll still be going out that way, out the front door, and we'll just meet in the car park. We've got a list of everybody's here, so we'll just tick you off before you leave. Thanks very much. Right, we understand that some of it could potentially be a bit triggering for some people. So if you feel like you need a space or need some time out, please just feel free to pop out. We've got the 2 other meeting rooms here booked out as well. So if you need to make a call because you're here for a wee while as well or something like that, or just have some space and time out, please feel free. If you want someone to sit with you, just get in touch with Karen or myself and we'll, you know, come and have a natter because we do waffling quite a bit. So always happy to have a waffle and a cup of tea. So speaking of which, help yourself to tea and coffee throughout the morning. There's some nibbles down the back because we won't be having lunch till around 1 o'clock, which is where we're aiming to finish the sessions. Let's see. So we are recording it, this thing. So if you don't want yourself to be on the recorded version that will go on YouTube, please just let Karen or myself know because we will be editing it so we can take you out if we need to. That sounds a bit dodgy, doesn't it? Take you out to dinner, not take you out sugar. Right, there we go. So what else have we got going? So it's going to be, we've got 5 speakers, so that's about 25 minutes per speaker. It will be up to those speakers whether you have questions during or after. And then we're going to have time for a bit of feedback at the end and then the real food at the end if you're here for the whole day. So I think that's pretty much what we're doing. We might... Oh, okay. Thank you.
Tolo macho chama chai ole mo fai na macho facha silene su macho fi macho che sanga video pe oe wa no mo ele se macho chum fai sala facha si mai foi mai manats malongo le wa le fa moi mano mai tmeri nuki mano mai tmeri rang tmeri ka meri po ka pakri macho po to mai tmeri hemie huye.
Thanks very much. Okay.
Thank you. I drop on the floor.
There will be, in between each speakers, there will be a bit of a pause whilst we try and get the presentations up.
Well, my presentation is pretty straightforward. It can start any time, just when I'm talking, so it only goes for about 10 minutes or so. So firstly, thank you for inviting me here today. It's always good to get out and to talk about what we do, which I love to do, and I can talk about it here. My name is Julie Sparks. I'm from Stephead Trust, and Stephead Trust is probably the coolest little mental health trust that you've never heard of before. Although we've been going in Christchurch for 40 years, a lot of people have never really heard about us. They often confuse us with Stepping Stone, another very good mental health organisation in Christchurch, but we're not at all related, completely separate, and we do completely separate things. So what do we do? Well, it's actually quite hard to get your head around what we do because it's quite different from every other mental health organisation in Christchurch. We provide activities for people with mental health. So it's easier to start off with saying what we don't do. So we don't do any residential, we don't do any counselling, and we don't do any clinical. We also don't do any crisis mental health. So we're sort of, what we do is we work Monday to Friday and we provide activities for people who have mental health conditions. So an activity, you think, activity, what does that mean? Well, it can mean just about anything you can think of. So in the background here, you'll see some of our members of some of the activities we do. We've been going for 40 years. There's not many activities we haven't done. we're very much member driven, so we ask our members what they like to do, and we provide and help facilitate those things. So things like walking, swimming, hiking, table tennis, badminton, golf, they're the sort of things that we do every week. We have arts and crafts, so lots of paintings, drawing, sewing, making things, jewellery, wool crafts, working with metal and wood and repairing things in our workshop, which is our new workshop. We do things like educational talks, cooking lessons, health, social things like we're having a talk on the Elections Commission coming up. We've just finished a health series where we had each week for 3 months, we had people and we might have had an optician, a hearing specialist. We had a skin person talk about skin conditions. We had everything you can think of week after week after week. We're based here in Christchurch. We're in Stanmore Road is our big house. There's probably a picture of it somewhere coming up there. We've been there for quite a number of years, and we've got another house in Peruri Street. And we also run 2-day activities in Rangiora. That's on a Monday and a Wednesday, and 2 days in Ashburton. We've just started our second day in Ashburton, Wednesdays and Fridays now in Ashburton. So it's getting more and more popular. We've seen it getting busier and busier every week, every month, probably the last nearly year, month on month, except for April, but anyway, it wasn't so busy in April. We've had more and more people through. August was our busiest month we've ever had. So the demand is getting huge. And I'm sure anybody who works in mental health will have the same sort of hear the same sort of thing that you're hearing today about mental health and what's happening in our communities. So who goes to Step Ahead? Well, people who come to Step Ahead, they're not actually in crisis ones, but there's a huge group that is in that next level. That what we like to think is we stop them getting to that next level. So they come to Step Ahead. It's a hugely diverse group. We have all sorts of people come along, from people who are employed to people who haven't never been employed, all different genders. We're very inclusive in who we include. Everybody is welcome. There is no judgment. And it's one of the things that a lot of our members say is that they love coming to Step Ahead because they're accepted there. And there's nobody judging them on what they do or say and how they interact. A lot of people make friends at Step Ahead because they've got like-minded people there, so they come along, they find it a great place. We have tea and coffee, and they come in half an hour before their activity starts, and they'll sit and have a coffee and start chatting to somebody. They go off and do their walk for an hour or two, and have another cup of tea at the end of it. There's nothing like cups of tea and coffee to get people talking, and then they build these friendships. We attempt the rehabilitation. That's what our main aim is, to try and get people back in the community and back interacting with each other in the community. So that's one of our main aims, is trying to get people back talking to each other and getting back in the community and getting back to regular lives. We find that people have a mental health, they might have a bit of a crisis in their life, they lose their job, they haven't been able to work, they've lost a lot of their social contacts, they start coming to Step Ahead and they start that upward spiral of actually becoming well again. Of course, a lot of our members have been coming to Step Ahead a long time. They come and they find it help keeps them on the level. I actually think a lot of what we do is vastly underrated. I think it's what we do is I was talking to Kerry before, and she's referred somebody to us, and she said it's been huge for them. It's really helped them become part of the community again and start to join in. We're actually having this whole year where the University of Canterbury is doing a research project on our model. And I would love to see our model replicated right around New Zealand, because at the moment, I think we're the only ones who do only what we do. So while there's lots of people who do activities, we have 20 staff. That's our Stanmore Road program. That's our Peruri Street program. So we have hundreds of programs every month. And I'll put up there's some of these programs down the back here, but the programs are online, so you can look at any time. Who can come to Step Ahead? Anyone who has a mental health condition. So the way it works is we usually get a phone call, or sometimes people just walk in. We'd much rather they rang up because we've got 20 staff, but they're always pretty busy. Make a time to come in, and we show them around. We show them our premises. We've got one room where we've got such a huge wall of activities that we do of photos. And we just sit them down and try and talk about what they want to do, what they want to get out of Step Ahead. And then they can put their name down, and we like them to do 2 or 3 activities. We prefer those activities to be on-site activities to start off, because we want to know that they're safe and that they're capable of doing the activities. Because some of our activities are quite demanding. This year we've had a special program skiing, and for no cost at all, we've been taking people up and down and teaching them to ski, which has been an amazing program. We do special activities like go jet boat riding or horse riding. We've been what do you call it? Not caving, climbing down waterfalls and things, canyoning. Once this last year, we did a surfing program too. So we've had some of the most amazing programs. So people come along once I've been for 2 or 3 visits, and they decide, okay, I do want to join Step Ahead. They come along and they have an interview with us, and we sit down, we get all of their details. We check with the doctor that they do have a mental health condition. The other thing we check is if they're safe to come to Step Ahead. They also have to be independent. So they can't come and have a caregiver with them. We're not that place. They need to be able to come and attend independently. We have a staff member take almost every group. We do have some member-led groups, but most of our groups are taken by an actual staff member. We have 7 vans, and so people, we get all around Canterbury. We have day trips away sometimes to places like Aikora or Methven. We went down to the Methven Hot Pools last week. We go up to Hamner, do the walks up there. Pretty amazing things. Last week we opened our annual art exhibition where people can display all their art, and it's actually running this week if anyone's interested to go at the Phillipstown pub. So there's a room there that has got the most amazing art and our members have done. So once somebody has done an interview, then they can join Step Ahead and they can choose whatever activities they want to go to themselves, and they come along and put their name down in the popular system and on Step Ahead. We also have an amazing computer program we've started. It came about after the earthquakes, after the COVID. Where when we all went into lockdown, we decided I would run some Zoom sessions. And so we sent out the invitations, and we had about 6 people join in. And we thought, what's going on here? And we found that a lot of our members didn't have the skills or the equipment or the knowledge to be able to go and do Zoom. So once we got back in our house, we applied for some funding from MSD, and they really came to pay for us, and we were able to employ a person and buy some devices. We sell the devices to our members for half the price, so they get a really good phone, a laptop or a tablet. And we worked with the Digital Alliance, who gave us free modems, and we helped people set up Wi-Fi in their houses. We helped them get their phones running, and now we have a lot of our people have now got these devices, and it's been life-changing for a lot of people because it's so easy now to contact them. So when they book into something, when we have something new change, we can send a text out, we can send an email out, and they can come along. We found that the doctors in the area love it too, or medical professionals, because they can now contact their clients and much more easily than they used to. So cost. We do this all at a very, very low cost. There's nothing to join. We used to have a $10 a year joining fee. We've scrapped that because we found it was a bit of a barrier. Most of our classes, a lot of our groups and activities are nothing. A lot of them are $2. If we have a special activity like the horse riding or the jet boating, we might charge $10 or $20 to go and do that. We feel it's a really good thing to be able to charge a little bit. People need to know that actually in society it costs money to do things. So as much as we want to keep it as free and as barrier free as possible, we still just charge a little bit now and again. Any questions? I feel like I'm blathering on there and not really.
Can you describe the range of people that would be some of your members?
Okay, we're over 18, so we don't take children. We find we have a lot of old people. So we have got a youth group because we're finding we're getting a few young people coming in and they didn't want to join in with our older groups. So it's a pretty much even gender split, males and females. A lot of older people over 60. But then there's quite a big group in the 40s and 50s as well. So a lot of them haven't been working or been in society much for a while. But there is absolute real mix of people come along. It would be hard to define.
So when you say mental health, is this people with anxiety or
Depression, anxiety, those sorts of, that sort of group, yes. We do have people with dual disabilities, so we do have people who have a physical or an intellectual disability as well, but their main diagnosis needs to be mental health. So that's what we're looking for when somebody comes in the door, that they have a mental health.
Does it have to be clinically diagnosed?
That's a really good question. We say it has to be diagnosed by a professional. So, and we count a lot of people as professionals. You know, we try not to exclude people, but then we have to be a little bit careful because we would be completely overrun if we just accepted every single person who wanted to join. It's a pretty fun place to come, you know, and it's a fun place to work. Our staff love working there. We have going out on hikes, and our guy, we've got very talented staff, and he says, I can't believe I get paid to do this. Take a group of people out hiking, and we've got a resident artist, and she's amazing. She loves doing her drawing and teaching people to draw. We have people like, we've got a lady called Sunlay who she used to run craft classes at Spotlight for 5 years, and now she comes and works with us. And she's been teaching learning to sew, and she's been making the most amazing things. Last week she made covers for food wrap cover, like a hat, and she's made aprons, and she does shoulder bags, and she does soft toys, and she knits. She does almost anything with wool and spins. And we've got a jeweler on staff. She used to work in jewellery, and she decided she wanted to change her career. And now so they make things like rings and bangles, and we've got people we've got a personal trainer who used to work at these mills, and I had a member tell me last week, I can't believe that I get to come to Steppen here and go to the gym with a personal trainer who used to charge, you know, fortune at these mills, and they can come for $2.50 or $3, I can't remember how much it is. I get to go to the gym and have a personal training session. So it's a lot.
And when you say youth group, is that 12 to 24 years old?
No, 18 is out. We don't take anyone under 18.
So the youth group
It is 18 to 30 something. Yeah, because we found we had a real gap. We weren't, hardly any of our members were in that age group, and so we started this youth group in the last couple of years, and it's really picking up now. We're getting a good following. They do fun things. They might have seen a picture there of them out at the beach having a bonfire, and they go trampolining and just about anything they can think of, really. Once a week we have a evening activity on a Wednesday evening, and 1 week we have it's in the house, so we cook a meal and serve a meal, and we have something like karaoke or a games night or a movie night or talent quest, or sometimes we just have a social night and not do anything in particular. And then the following week we go out to a local restaurant, just sort of cheap and cheerful local restaurant. We go all around town, all different types of restaurants. just to have a night out. After that, we drop our members back home. We don't, as a rule, provide transport. They have to come to us. We provide the transport once they get Step Ahead and then back to Step Ahead, but people have to find their own way there and back. We have quite a lot of people that drive themselves. A lot of people bike, but mostly bus and walk, because we're in the area where there's not areas that our members live. We call them members, not clients, not consumers. Members are sort of a nice term without, labelling people too much. So that's sort of covers that area. Sorry.
You mentioned that MSD came to the party and funded your technology projects. Are they your major funders? Or
Our major funder is Te Whatu Ora. We've been having a contract with them for many, many years. They're a big supporter of Step Ahead, and we're very grateful for the funding they provide. We have a top up from MSD every year, and of course we're very lucky to have the Rata Foundation in Canterbury, and they generally come to the party with about $50,000 a year for us too, which provides a lot of those extra things that we wouldn't otherwise be able to provide. We don't tend to apply for funding for too much else. We're very careful with our funding. We make sure every cent is spent on our members as much as possible and on our houses. You'll see that picture on the right. That's one of our members. She actually made that Step Ahead sign. So she's a very, very clever working with craft. And that was at our 40th birthday party in February this year, when we had a big crowd along to celebrate. So that's our computer. Those people here did their computer training. We had a certificate. They had to be able to do Zoom, do a bit of security, sign in, know how to top up. What was the other thing? I can't remember, but what I didn't say before was that after we had the second lockdown and we tried to do a Zoom again, we went to 480 connections from 480 connections to our program. We had 48 in the first lockdown, with our 6 people having a few each and a few other people, but we had this huge increase in people who were able to Zoom and connect and stay connected, which I hope they found very helpful throughout. So I think that's just about me. I made a note to make sure I didn't miss too much. I hope I haven't missed anything. You'll see our brochures at the back. Please take them and give them out. And we have a newsletter come out every month. There's a few of those there too, just letting you know what we're up to. Talking about the things that we've got coming up for the next month. That come out every month. Got quite a good online following on Facebook now these days. If anyone wants to follow us and we see some of the amazing things that we do. When people join up, they get a membership information book and tells them how we work. It's some of the activities we do, but we find our activities constantly changing. It's coming out all the time, and some of the ones that fall off and people stop coming to them, so we will stop those. So that's a volunteering day. We do those. We very much believe in the 5 mental health ways of health, and that was a volunteering day out at Willowbank. Where we go every Friday. So that one there is our every year in about March we have a challenge to walk 250 kilometres. So we work out a track at Horswell Quarry, and you can walk or bike around the track, and everybody does a few kilometres, and we add it all up to try and get to 250 kilometres. It started off as a whole 100-kilometre challenge. Wasn't enough. We did that very quickly. Then it became 150, and then now it's up to 250. So that's some of our hiking. Cooking classes are really popular. We do cooking for one, just simple low-cost meals. Our meals are always really popular. We have at least one meal in the house every week, and they provide very much into the healthy food. We've got a healthy food policy, so we don't have any things like cakes or fizzy drinks. It's very much an emphasis on healthy eating. Because we find that we're partners with Equally Well, and I know we've all heard of Equally Well, organisation. They say that the mind and the body should be equally well, and a lot of people with mental health issues aren't particularly physically very healthy. In fact, there's a horrible statistic out there that say they die about 20 years younger than people, earlier than people who don't have mental health. So we work really hard on the healthy, trying to provide a healthy lifestyle. That's a house in Stanmore Road. And there's our board and our staff. So that's another thing that surprises most people of how many staff we actually have. It's very busy to try and keep those numbers up.
So Julie, do you have a capacity? You know, what's your do you have a waiting list or?
We don't have waiting lists, no. We have about 400 members at the moment. I've been with Stephen Head for 5 years. And when I started, we had about 280 members. So in 5 years, we've gone up, we've doubled more than 25%. So we're coping just at the moment. So
because I'm imagining everybody going away and saying, oh, this is a really great place.
yes.
And all of a sudden you've got another 50 people wanting to join, and it's yeah.
Yes, we think we'll worry about that when it happens, but we've got some plans to bring on some extra staff, but it's just a matter of if we can afford it, really. So it's just balancing one cost against another. So we're actually really lucky with resources, where people are so incredibly generous. We had a staff member who worked at Outward Bound, and Outward Bound changed all they had a new sponsor, and the new sponsor didn't want any of the old sponsors' gear. So I'm not sure if it's Macpac or whatever it was, or Kathmandu or whatever, but they gave us all their old gear. So we got tramping boots, tramping packs, tents, and all that sort of stuff. And we've got a shed full now, so when we go camping, we can have proper packs. We're actually having a couple of overnight trips coming up in the next little while. We've got an overnight trip to Packles Huffus. Many of you walked out to there. We're coming up, and another one up into Arthur's Pass. So it's great to be able to have that gear that people can have proper experience. So we've got probably 6 or 7 mountain bikes that we've been given over the years, and we maintain those, and that makes our mountain biking accessible to everybody. In this last year, we've also built a little workshop at our Prairie Street house. So Kevin, our manager there, and I think Kerry came out and spoke at Poorsville, didn't he? Now we're thinking of starting up a repair shop, and we're going to ask several years of volunteers from the end sheds or somewhere along to actually help us with the technical side of repairing things and building them up. So it's a very busy place.
Do you have volunteers?
We have a few. They come and go. We've got a wonderful lady at the moment helping with our computers. We have Tai Chi come in. We've had yoga. We've had therapy dogs. So we do have some volunteers. They tend to come and go, but we have a lot of students too. We always try and have a lot of students from the various organisations. Anyway, I think I've used up my time.
I wasn't checking.
You weren't checking.
I was checking who's up next.
So, any other questions? Well, I hope we can see some of your people come along if you think you've got anybody suitable to come. And I'm very sorry I can't stay. We've got today is our every year during Mental Health Awareness Week. We have an event. We walk between our two houses from Stanmore Road to Prairie Street at 6.6 kilometres. And we start off and do a big walk through. It's actually a really nice area. We walk down the river and through the parks, and we come out at Dean's Bush and then just walk around the corner on the street. So we've got that starting at 12 o'clock, and it'll be a bit of bedlam there this morning. So we've got about 70 people coming to do that. So keeps us busy. So thank you again for fighting with along. Yeah, that's great.
So you make it sound like fun having a mental health issue, and it's like, no, but, and I thought, oh, no, you're really out and about, because I've seen your van, and then when you said 7, I thought that explains why I've seen your van.
If we're not marked, we don't have any markings on our vans.
I've seen something, you guys.
Well, you wouldn't know.
Maybe it was your team. No, you don't have, okay, well, I've lost the plot then, so maybe, okay, come along and join some of your activity. So our next speaker, the team from Youthline.
Good everyone, I'm Atahua. I am the volunteer coordinator for Youthline Central South Island. So what that means is that I provide the pastoral care for all of our volunteers on the helpline, from the Waitaki Bridge all the way to the top of the south. And so that's a bit of me.
Hello, I'm Cynthia. I've been a volunteer for 4 years now. And last year I started working as the office manager. So I do all of the fundraising. And I'm always looking for young people or anyone in general who wants to help out. And we do Bunnings barbecues, we do mall appeals as well. And we're always looking for new creative ideas to fundraise.
Yeah, I'll get into a bit more about what I do later on. We'll go on to the next part. So what is Youthline? I should have passed back to Cynthia. This is a big part in my style of talking.
So we run a 24/7 crisis line, but between the hours of 8 AM and midnight, we are open to everyone. Our target audience is young people, but we do get older people calling us up about anything really.
Yeah, so our target audience is always the 12 to 24-year-olds. However, we also get younger than that. The youngest that I've had is 4, talked to on the helpline. And then the oldest I've had is 86. And she was a dementia patient, and she just wanted to chat about her life. And we usually get parents wanting support with their child or a young person in their vicinity. Yeah, and so those are the people that we tend to talk to on the helpline. Who's behind the phone? Hello, it's me. So the people on our helpline are volunteers. So if you ever call up Youthline and you're talking to someone, they do it voluntary. They're not paid to do it. However, they go through extensive training. So every area does it differently. Although we are based in Christchurch, there are people based in Auckland, in Wellington, Dunedin, Invercargill, we're all over everywhere. We also have volunteers in Blenheim and Timaru, and on the West Coast. And we're trying to break into Nelson currently. Yeah, you may also get triage. So they're the ones that facilitate risk. What we cover risk is suicide, self-harm, and what's the third one? Parent protection. So any abuse of any kind. And they're our support. So while we're on the helpline, they're there to help us. And they also cover the helpline when there isn't a volunteer on. So they're there from 8 AM till midnight. And there's 2 on at a time. So why do people ring? I'm going to take you through some stats. Because young people call for all reasons. Sometimes they just want to chat. One of my favorite calls was, she was 23, and her partner had just proposed to her, and she'd said yes, and she was really excited, and she just wanted to talk to me about it because she couldn't tell her family yet. They wanted to tell each other's families together. She just had to get it out. So she called Youthline. And I was the lucky person to have a chat with her. So we get really good calls like that. But then we go into these. So generally most of our calls are relationships, whether that be partner, whether it be family, and most of the time it's relationships between a child and parent. They're arguing, mum's done this, dad's done that, and they just want to chat about it. Next one. So 20% of our calls are suicide. For us, that's 1 in, I think the stats got a bit higher, which is 1 in 3 calls in our suicide calls for us at Youthline. It used to be 1 in 5, so it's gone up a wee bit. And most of the time, this is what we prepare our volunteers for. We run them through all the bad stuff, so that they're prepared for it, so that they know what's going to come. And unfortunately, that's the world that we live in, is that this stuff becomes norm. And we really want to hope change that, because, yeah, well, it's mostly suicide that we talk to young people about, whether that's suicidal ideation, or, you know, their friends committed suicide and they need someone to talk to about it. Yeah.
And unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of younger people, like younger and younger kids don't want to go to school, and so they have thoughts of ending their life. That's just the first place that their head goes to.
After that, depression's at 14%. Again, we hear about all the bad stuff. So the good stuff come and goes for our young people, but this stuff tends to stick, and this is the stuff that they talk to us about. So a little bit about me. My background's youth work. Been in the game since I was 14. I'm now 22. Yeah. And so that was my life. And so, as most of you will know, if you're working with a young person, it takes a lot just to get even their favourite colour out of them. But on our helpline, we get everything within the first 5 minutes of talking to them. So they share their deeper, most inner thoughts with us. That you wouldn't really hear in a face-to-face talk because they don't know who we are. So they feel more comfortable sharing those things with us. Anxiety is at 10%. I think this is lower than most because usually our young people will call up, and anxiety ends up becoming the second problem, because they'll be calling up and they'll be having a panic attack. So we'll help guide them through that, and then we talk about why they were having the panic attack. And usually it stems from depression or suicide or that relationship, because it can also be friends. And then self-harm. So we like to differentiate between suicide and self-harm, because self-harm doesn't always lead to suicide. A lot of the time it's a coping mechanism. So what our role is to try and find the other coping mechanisms that young people are already using, but that they don't see. What does Youthline do? So a big part of Youthline is we don't give advice. So with our young people, if they come to us looking for advice, we have to tell them that we don't give it. What we're there to do is to let them be the writers of their own story. We're just there to help them along the way. This is how I like to put it. The other things that we do away from the helpline, I'll put my other cap on now, is we also have our education side. So we run different workshops throughout the year, whether that be mental health through stage, leadership, grief, depression, facilitation skills, things like that. And so I go out with some of my volunteers, and we'll go into schools and other organisations. Recently, I just worked with Pillars and headed on to their supervision and helped facilitate a workshop for their volunteers that go their peer mentors, which was awesome to see, to be honest. It was my first time presenting to a group of adults with that particular workshop. People already know their craft, so the questions that were coming out were really cool, and it was more of a refresher. What else do we do?
Can you sum it up?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't say that.
Yeah.
What else do we do? So part of my role is that when we're in the schools, is that we run a particular program called our peer support program. It's also known as Mai Ngā Oranga. And that is a year-long program. So it starts term 1. We spend time with the young people, and then I'm there once a month. So I provide supervision to them, where we chat they eat pizza. And I just check in with them. It provides them that space of being able to say no. Or actually exams are coming up, I've got this going on, I can't do it anymore. Can I please step away for a little bit and maybe come back later? It's a big thing for us. Is showing young people that they have the autonomy to say no. And that they are, as I said before, the writers of their own story. They hold the pen. They control it. Yeah.
I guess we also provide workshops on mental health to organisations as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the policy difference. But yeah, I think go to the next slide. So,
Can I ask you a question?
oh, questions.
So when you're saying that you're not giving them advice and you're giving them the space to be the director of their own story, is that technically you're putting a safety plan in place for them if they're coming up with ideas?
Yeah, so it also comes down to they don't always want a solution. They sometimes just want to talk. And so during the middle of a conversation, a young person kind of gets used to our phrases at times, but we'll often ask them, you know, you've shared all of this with us. Where would you like to go next? Would you like us to run through some solutions around what we could do? Or do you just want to vent? And if they want to come up with a solution, often young people and older people are already doing stuff. For example, they may be going for walks already. They may do their skincare every night. So we look at ways that they could potentially throw an affirmation in there when they're doing their skincare. You know, saying to yourself in the mirror, I love myself, like that sort of thing. So we're there to give them options, and then they pick the option that they feel like they can do. Because for us, we have 20 minutes on a phone call. If that, sometimes the young person's like, nah, I'm done in 10 minutes. So we don't even get to that point. And it only tends to be if they're in imminent risk that it goes any longer. Yeah, so we try our hardest to get to that point of even trying to give them options and things like that, and come up with options together that they feel like they can do, but we may not even get to that point. Yeah, again, they can hang up the phone. They're the control, they're in control. Yeah.
And would they get a call back in that they'll be the best?
Yeah, so that's what triage is there for. So if we feel like the young person's in imminent risk, they'll do a non-consensual intervention. So they'll get in touch with the police, hand over the phone number, and then they do all the stuff that they need to do. It's not on the volunteers. We try and empower our volunteers to be able to take the phone call and try and build rapport with the young person to then get the young person to call. Or even if we have to make the call, the young person does the speaking and we're there as a support person for them while they talk. Yeah, but triage tends to intervene if it gets to the point of a non-consensual intervention.
So how do you get them done?
So
Stats and so on.
So we use our own, maybe you could talk to us better than I can. Yeah.
So when we receive a text, we record it, and our counsellors put in what kind of subject the conversation is about. And so that's how it all gets fed into a system, and we use Power BI to generate all these statistics and compile it all.
Yeah, it's the same with the calls as well.
Yeah.
So every single call, even if it's a test call, we have to log it.
Yeah.
And that's how the stats come through. If you want a more in-depth thing around the stats, I believe the most recent one is now up on the Youthline website. That is Auckland centric though, I will think. Is that the right word? Centred, that's the word I was looking for. Because they run the website. So they put up mostly Auckland stats, but they do include Christchurch in there as well, if you wanted specifically Christchurch. Yeah.
So you presumably you tell your callers that it's not anonymous and confidential.
Yeah, so when it gets to the point of an intervention, or where we feel like it's getting to that point, we have a little bit of a script that we have to say. for our volunteers, and I hear it quite often, is that they find suicide calls the easiest calls to take because it's the only thing that they have a script for. So they have questions that they have to ask, they have things that they have to follow. And within that, it's disclosing to the young person saying, hey, we're getting at a point now where we're really worried for your safety. And we believe we may need to do an intervention. And then we just ask them how it's sitting with them. And they can say no. And then we have to tell them, at this point, we need to pass you on to someone who can get you better help. We can be there with you on the call if you would like, but we are really worried for your safety. And they may need to do an intervention. We try not to do that though, because we want the young people to call back and we want them to have this as a safe space. And if they feel like we're just going to intervene on them, they're not going to come back. So we tend to try and empower them as much as we can. But there's sometimes that that's not possible. I looked at the stats for last month and I believe we did 11 non-consensual interventions last month. Yeah, and that's usually triage that does that. Yeah.
You get a lot of repeat calls.
Yeah. And often they'll ask for the volunteer that they've spoken to, because then they don't have to reshare it all over again. But we don't know when we're on. And it's also, it's a safety thing as well, because the more you get to know someone, they may be able to start pinpointing. You may disclose something unintentionally, and then you've got to kind of rein it back in. So yeah, I think we've got 4 managed care clients is what we call them. And so they're the ones that are stuck to a schedule. So they're allowed to call us sometimes once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week, but they're stuck to a particular time limit. And it's usually up to the counsellor on at that time. So that can be 15 to 20 minutes for them. And it's only because if they got the chance, they'd be calling us all the time, and we wouldn't be able to help any other young person. Yeah.
How do you take care of your volunteers?
Yeah, so I have like a really long to-do list. But the very top of the to-do list is I have to message them once a month. So as we said before, every call gets logged, every text also gets saved. And if it's an incident report, I get it. So if it's self-harm, suicide, or anything like that, I get to see it. And then my job is after you've submitted that, get in touch. So although I'm only part-time, it's a full-time job, because those incident reports can come at 11 o'clock at night. And so I'll end up messaging our volunteers being like, hey, how's it sitting with you? Are you okay? And often they'll just be like, can you pass off? Oh, I'm yeah. Like, I'm fine. You know, wait till the more heavier call. The other thing that we do is this is going on. What's the thing that we do monthly?
Oh, we have monthly supervision. So we have a professional counsellor come in and we do group supervision.
There we go. Okay, water cleared it up. I promise it won't say. It's stuck in there somewhere. Yeah, and then the other thing that I do, because we've got our ones that are out of town, one of them, he comes in monthly, so he's on the West Coast. And then I tend to travel. So we have new intakes. We try and do it once a year, but sometimes if we've got capacity, we'll do it twice a year. And we usually don't take any more for the helpline than around 14 people at max. Because any more than that, then our content tends to get lost. Because it is a very extensive training, as I mentioned earlier on. It's a weekend, so it's an overnight stay. So we go out to Wilder Trust, and then it's 6 weeks. And it's also online training as well. So you're doing the online portion, and then you meet up in person at the Avon Lip Cottage. And have 3-hour sessions there to discuss everything that you've gone through on online training. And so those volunteers that are coming through, also got to take care of them as well, because it is really hard, especially when you start going through how we deal with suicide in our risk situations, because that can be the most triggering part for a lot of our volunteers. They are from all walks of life. So although we're called helpline counsellors, a lot of them are just mums, who one runs the escape rooms. He's a manager there. We've got all these different volunteers from different backgrounds. What did you do? You were a psych student, weren't you? Yeah, a lot of ours are psych students wanting to get into clinical. So they come to us and they, run, they help on the helpline and trying to get into clinical. But yeah, I think the biggest thing that I do is I just talk to them, because a lot of times it's all I can do. And if they need more extensive support, we have an EAP. So he's amazing. And if he feels like they need more support, then we provide that for the volunteer. But more often not, then they just come talk to me, or Tristan is our manager, who his background is counselling, social work. So they would cover all the bases essentially.
And if there's a particularly hard shift, we encourage our volunteers to just head off for the day if they need to.
Yeah, so they never have to finish their shift.
Yeah.
Especially if it's an intervention call or anything like that. But as I say to most of our volunteers that are coming through, it's never the thing that you expect that hits you the hardest. And so they often have to think about that and prepare for everything rather than just the one thing.
How many calls would you get, so in a week, a month, or a day, or whatever?
So it's really hard to say, because some days can be busier than others. The first week of the school holidays is always our busiest. Oh no, sorry, second week. Second week's always our busiest, for the pure fact that now they're getting bored. So the first week you tend to have stuff to do, and then you're starting to repeat yourself the second week. So then they're getting in touch with us. I will say our volunteers do 3-hour shifts. So if we have a call that's 45 minutes long and then we have another one that's like half an hour long, then that's like 2 hours of our shift done. Because we've also got to write the call logs and write up the incident reports and things like that. And we also turn our phone off half an hour before the end of time, so that our volunteers can go home on time. They use that last half an hour to wrap up anything that's coming up. I would say on average, mornings tend to be either very, very busy or the slowest portion that you could ever volunteer on. And it tends to be because of parents. The kids off to school, now I'm going to call Youth Line and see what I can do to help them when they get home, because something happened last night. And then between the hours of 9 p.m. to midnight, which is my favourite shift, is the busiest our helpline gets. And that's because young people are sitting at home, they're in bed, they're trying to go to sleep, but your brain's just like this. Everything that you did wrong during the day is starting to fester up. So they reach out to Youth Line. And because we're only open till midnight, unless it's crisis, then we tend to send them over to 1737. But yeah.
That's a good question about the calls, because we're seeing them drop quite a lot.
Yeah.
Young people don't like calling.
It's mostly text.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's mostly parents that call, or 18 to 25 will call. Yeah. It's very rare for us to get a young person who's below 18 who is called up of their own, want. It's usually the parent on the phone being like, hey, can you talk to my child? I don't want to talk to you, you know.
If they text you, just have a text conversation.
Yeah. So we also have web chat. Unfortunately, the live thing's in front of everything, but it's okay. Is web chats are online based. So if they don't have a phone, but they have a laptop because of school, they can also reach out to us on web chat and talk to one of our counsellors that way. We also email as well, which I find has been quite busy lately, funnily enough. Young people reaching out through email because often they'll be at school. They'll email us while they're at school. Yeah, these are the texts. Please don't ask me the question that I always get asked by young people, which is what is the phone number? I have to stare at this. I should probably know it off by heart, but it tends to fly out of our minds. But yeah, phones tends to be older generation. Text is our younger lot. And also I think it's safer for them when they text in. It's harder for us because we have to stick to our guidelines. And it's also, we can never tell quite what they mean because we can't hear the tone of their voice. But then they can't hear us as well. And it's also a bit more safer for them, I think, or they feel safer when you can't hear someone on the other end. But it feels less confronting as well. Yeah.
So do all of your services close at midnight? And then you have an answer phone, or you have a...
So we have overnight staff. So they are on from midnight to 8 a.m. And the reason we say crisis only is because there's only 2 of them. If they were to also take all the general calls and things like that, or general texts, they'd be there for a long time. So rather than men doing that, what they'll say is, if it's imminent, please give us a call. 1737's here. Or if you're in need of imminent help, yeah, we can give you a call now. Or there's another thing that I'm missing part of that. They also have a particular staff member on now who will follow up in the morning. So if they have messaged in and they just wanted to chat, they'll do they'll do an early morning text to all of them, just be like, hey, sorry we missed your text last night, would you like to talk now? Yeah, so it tends to be the way that they handle that now.
How do you get a message out to young people that you're there to help?
So one is social media. That's our biggest platform. We're very lucky that our Auckland Centre is very public based and they're very social media heavy. We're also very lucky that we have people like Stan Walker, Jazz Thornton, other celebrity types that really advocate for Youthline. So even if we're not doing it, we've got people that are in social media presence who are always doing it. We also, I'm in schools. It's very lucky if you see me at the office because I'll be at a school doing a presentation quite like this and talking to them about what Youthline does, who we are, who's behind the phone, because it tends to be the biggest question. And more often than not, they just want to hear more about what are the type of things that people actually talk about on the helpline. And then, yeah, doing things like this. But I think another thing that we've recently started doing as well is emailing out to other community organisations, just letting them know that we are here. Yeah, so that tends to be what we do. We tend to fly under the radar. And we're mostly in schools. But 1737 is the predominant helpline number that you'll find within schools. And the reason for that is that they come under the government scheme, whereas we're a charity organisation, so we don't come into that. I think it's the Whakarongoto one, is that it? Yeah, so that's how that.
Hello everyone. Like we did start, my name's Kyla. I'm from He Walks Tapu, and I'm the team manager. I've been 8 coming up to 9 years now. And then yeah.
So the next speaker we have from
Good everyone, my name is Fuchika and I am the suicide prevention coordinator.
Your glasses, your drinks,
Kia ora.
stand up, stretch.
So we're just going to go over our services just briefly, what we kind of do at He Walks Tapu, and then we'll speak specifically to more of our services that have the mental health aspect to it as well at the end. Cool. So just a bit about He Walks Tapu. We've been around for a while now, I think 26 years-ish. And we're just talking at the start about it started through at Daryl's the bird of his car. And yeah, it's grown a heap. We're now 150 plus kaimahi, so staff members across Christchurch, Hakatiri, Ashburton, and the Chatham Islands. And we hold, I think, about 40 plus contracts. So yeah, there's a heap of work going on at our place. Yeah, always working together for the wellbeing of whānau. Everything is orientated around the whāora that walk through outdoors. We do alcohol and drug services, so probably one of our main ones. Stopping violence programs, so for Tāne and Wahine. We have community services, so ones that are situated more in the office, and then our outreach ones as well, which are like our health coaches, and yeah, whānau navigators working alongside whānau, advocating for them. We have the Tinana Gym. So it's a free gym for our community to use. And we have Dori and Mino who work there, who are able to do health assessments with people when they come in, inductions and personalised plans like you would at a normal gym like Les Mills. Yeah, and then obviously Hakatiri office, a little bit smaller. I think we have about 10 to 12 kaimahi in that space. And then another kaimahi in the Chatham Islands, which we fly across there every couple of months and support the work happening in that space. So yeah, that is a little bit of our services. I'm sure there's a heap more there. Cool, our values. So yeah, all of these across all of our mahi that we do. And we hold days where we close our building, and our kaimahi learn about each of these values and how we incorporate into our mahi day to day. Awesome. Yeah, so that's pretty much an overview of what I've kind of spoke to already. Yeah. Cool. So over the years, we always do surveys with our whānau when they enter our services and finish up. So part of the feedback that came through was just to continue removing the barriers for our whānau to access services. So part of that was our open groups. So basically, this supports our kaimahi in terms of their caseload. So it's reduced the number of caseloads, files sitting on their caseloads. As well as given our whānau an option to just turn up, attend what session they would like to, and not reduce the number of DNA. So before it was open, obviously 3 DNA type things and people were being discharged. Whereas now that for most of our groups, they have the option to just come and attend a session that relates to them or supports their needs, maybe miss the next one, and then come in for the one after that type thing. So these are across music, sports, literacy and numeracy. We used to do those types of things, te reo classes.
Carving.
Yeah, carving, yeah, there's a heap. So yeah. Cool. Te Aronga Health, so that's our new GP clinic. So that sits next to our main building on site. Super low cost, yeah, community focused, whānau inclusive, and aftercare wraparound support is also included. Obviously, a lot of referrals as well. when people see their GP come across to our main building in the services within He Wakatapu. So yeah, it's awesome having that space there and be able to refer our file into the GP that we know and love. This was the T9 gym that I spoke to. So yeah, no fees at all, which is amazing. Both Geordie and Menal are qualified personal trainers. Health assessments when they start out, aftercare plans. A lot of people accessing our services will come and utilise the gym as well to support their journeys in terms of whether it's AOD or family violence type thing. We have comedy and massage, so massage available within the gym space, again free for our filer to use, and heaps of drop-in clinics as well. So, yeah. Right, so was there any questions around kind of like our general services at all that anyone wants to touch on while space?
Do people just turn up, or are they all referrals, or how do you know how to access you?
Yeah, for sure. So we accept staff referrals, so people will just pop in anytime 8:30 till 5 and come in, no appointment required. And basically we'll grab a kaimaki who will sit with them for 30 minutes to an hour, go over obviously the paperwork side of things, have a conversation and see what services might suit their needs best. And then they're allocated within 7 working days and engaged in our services. They can also be referred by external organisations. So through our online website, you can refer there, and it's all done once the referral is received. Managers meet and they do kind of triage type thing and make sure we're allocating them to the best appropriate service. Yeah. All right, so Whakahohoro Te Hau. This service was started at the end of last year as a pilot for 3 months with Putapota Whitu. And it was then given us another 3 months, and it's now a year. So we're able to kind of do something more in that space, but it's been an amazing service to have. So this is for mental health crisis support for 18 years plus. We work the 8:30 till 5 type shift, and Putapota Whitu are 3 p.m. till 9 p.m. So we kind of cover the after hour space as well. We accept again staff referrals through here, Putapota Whitu a little bit different just because of health and safety and things like that. So online or phone calls for any other type of referral. It is brief intervention, so the kaimahi are working with these whānau for I'd say 1 to 14 days. A lot of the time we've seen people coming through, it's around housing or relationship breakups, family violence, and they've kind of hit rock bottom and need some kind of support then and there. This service is we hope to remove the pressures from primary supports like crisis resolution in the ED space, where people with mental health crisis would normally turn up and maybe not meet criteria. We try and remove the pressures from there, working closely with them to ensure we do invest to build that relationship in that space.
You said you were working with people as well.
Yeah.
In terms of hours, do they do slightly different, in a slightly different brief from you? I mean, talked about brief interventions. Do they do the same kind of work?
It's all streamlined across. It's just more the referral process because the after hours is kind of the only difference. But we find that, like I said, the trends have been housing definitely in the last month or so. And once they've kind of got somewhere to stay, that crisis has de-escalated a lot. But awesome team working in this service. I guess, do you have any questions around this service?
Sure, Igor. Does He Wakatapu actually go to Whare?
Yeah.
So if we're not going to come to you,
Yeah, so part of this team, we've got community kaimahi, cultural kaimahi and clinical. So there's always a clinical oversight with anyone that comes in. All of our kaimahi have the ability to go to whare, to go to cafe or to transport whānau to come in on site. Yeah, very mobile. So wherever they feel comfortable, that's where we'll go.
And what about for whānau that are actually in that space? So we're not talking about, so let's just say, so my son, he's in crisis. As whānau are trying to work with him, but don't quite know how to do it. Do you support the whānau as well to give them some tools?
Yeah, and we've had whānau call up and just kind of ask what else. They don't want psychologists, they don't want clinicians, so maybe Rongoa was more suitable for them, which we also provide, you know, that kind of spiritual healing first, and then if that doesn't work, try a more clinical approach if required. But
and is that with all of the whānau, not just the person, not just about the individual, but as a whole whānau?
If anyone can, if that service is what that whānau would like to try, they can. Yeah, anyone can refer. That's quite cool. Also, like if they're coming from Helmorden or they've got more clinical needs, we do work closely as well with our nurse practitioner and the GP, and obviously our clinical oversight and Helmorden also stay on board to ensure that risk is mitigated as much as possible. Yeah.
And sorry, and also just to add on to that, we also have a lot of open groups that are free for the community, so you don't have to be going through any crisis. I guess the purpose of these open groups are more of like a strength-based group, so building on the strengths of the community. So in these groups, it could be for whānau that are going through crisis, or it could be just for anyone that's just wanting to learn tools. And so this is an opportunity for whānau that might want a window into what anger looks like, or mental health or mindfulness. And so they could attend this group, be part of the program, but then take away tools that they could go and apply. Because eventually that's what we want to do, is we want to strengthen the community to be part of the solution rather than be part of the problem. Yeah. Cool.
Tangible tools are a great way.
100%.
Like for said, mindfulness is a lot of the whānau will go into that group and
and as I say, our people, we're all hands-on people. Now I guess life has moved on to the metaverse and social media cyber world. And if you haven't kept up with the training and induction, you'll be like me, get left behind. And so now we're starting to introduce more of these soon to be, hopefully, digital literacy alongside with our numeracy and literacy, as we see that demand tend to rise. But until we get there, we're always staying open to how we could support the community as problems start to come through, because we want to stay relevant with the times. Yeah.
Awesome. I'll let Footy talk to our KPTO service.
Yeah, ka piki te ora. So ka piki te ora, suicide prevention. Do you want to give a bit of a layout from before, and then I'll bring on Connect Wha?
Yeah, sure. So our contract's been renewed basically in July of this year. Rawiri had been in our KPTO team for 6 years, finished up last week actually, but we now have KPTO across from Kaikoura right through Christchurch, Whakatiri and Maori as well. So we're able to, at the moment we've been in the co-design process of it with other organisations who are doing amazing mahi across the motu. We are kind of just listening and finding out what each different place needs right now. But the KPTO is no longer frontline mahi, so it's coordinating and raising the voices of the community that are already doing the mahi here, and supporting whānau to be able to look after each other and not have to always knock on the doors of those primary services. And I guess whakahohoro te hau in KPTO work quite closely just to ensure that we do need frontline. We've got that whakahohoro team as well to support.
100%. Yeah. Cool. And so just like I was saying before, so like Tala was saying before, the direction of where we want to take Ka piki te ora has kind of moved into a way where we want the wider community to be part of the solution. And so there's this great saying that I love to work with, especially when I'm working with community, is there's no greater power of change than a community that discovers what they care about. And so my role coming into here is making sure that the community actually takes the subject seriously. We tend to think that it's not part of our job, but it affects all of us. And so what we've designed in order to engage the wider community is we've got this, it's a social media campaign and a website called Connect Wha, playing off the game Connect 4. And so when we look at the four, we're talking about the 4 pillars within Te Whare Tapa Wha, which is physical, spiritual, mental, and whānau. And so we identified that with all of these pillars, if they're taken care of in the young person or the adult, they will thrive. And so the idea with Connect Wha is rather than those that are feeling the stress go into services like ours or go admit themselves into a hospital to seek help, we've kind of commissioned this design to make it accessible for anyone. And so the idea is a sticker. And so the sticker would go into a building, any building, hopefully where majority of foot traffic are, it would go in a building. And so on the sticker, you have a QR code. So all you got to do if you're feeling distressed is go up to the QR code and you scan the code, and then all the services that you'll be able to get support from would come into this one landing page. And so the idea is whether you're at home or whether you have a car or whether you're at work, the sticker is available for you and services, so should be too. This is really beneficial for, we just recently come over from the Chatham Islands, and the insights that we collated from there, one of the major issues was the island is so small and that everyone knows each other. And so how do we support our community out in the Chathams that don't really feel safe because of privacy matters? Well, this is it. They don't have to leave the island, but they can get direct access and support from the QR code on their phone. And you probably say there's many out there. Yeah, there probably is. But our point of difference is we're trying to make it accessible for everyone. We know that there's services out there that are specific for certain age groups or certain demographics. And so we're trying to insert ourselves again, like I said before, is that we are all part of this wider solution there. And so this is us, because I'm a heavy believer that death is a thought that visits the mind when life just wants a rest. Life doesn't want to stop. Life just wants a rest. And so hopefully through Connect Wha, we're presenting opportunities of rest. And like what we've heard today, like step ahead. Perfect example of those non-clinical programs, but are real good for self-development. And so how do we lift the visibility of these kind of services? You put them on Connect Wha. And so before I do shut up, I've got this book right here, real professional. It's got your email, organization, contact number, and name. And so the idea is, if you guys are willing and you guys want to participate in this app and want to be part of our system, if you just put your name down, email address, contact, what I'll do is I'll send you an email, book a time that we could talk, go a bit more. And then if your services are keen to jump on the service for young people or adults to access, and then we can look at how we could get you registered on. And also it's free to host the sticker. It does come with a consent form and induction. Like I said, like the team from Youthline said, we're not here to advise, especially those that are hosting stickers. You're not there to advise. All you're there to show is the community that you are there to help. That's it. So together we could all do our part. Any questions, Whānau? No? Awesome.
I should have said as well, all of our mahi is done, obviously kaupapa Māori, so take that holistic approach and utilise Te Whare Tapa Wha across, all the kind of mahi that we do. And I think someone said earlier, it's so important for mental health to be well if you've got all of those things intact. We try and provide kind of a one-stop shop for whānau to come and get those services. And KPTO is across all ages and all whānau, so it's quite cool, we can't click on the link, but
you should be able to do it on that computer.
Do it on there.
Yeah, should be fine.
So this will just give you, it's being updated, but it'll give you a kind of look at what Connect Wha is.
That's just.
So Connect Wha was created about 6 years ago. funding stopped.
Yeah, and you need
and
to go
put on hold for a little bit,
Nice.
and now we're able to pick it back up and get it going again.
Did it open? Is this it here? Yeah, I can show.
Any questions, guys, on Connect Path?
I don't have a question, but I just want to advocate for you. I worked in the Mason construction until recently.
Yeah.
And was a case manager for them, so connected with them a lot. And can speak highly enough of the services, and I just support the guys still in the job and then at the moment to what they do in the community and just advocate right throughout it. Because it isn't just for the east side, not what people think it is for the east side, but it's not, it's for the community and the community.
Sure.
If you can go along and just sit in the reception and watch the rooms go round. That in itself is amazing, the volume of programs that they've got going on, the interaction, the people focus is exactly what you want for your community, so you can see it in action, so you don't even need to be there for anything as such, but it's you can watch what's happening and feel that warmth around you. And yeah, I can't speak for you guys.
And if you guys haven't been, again, put your email down and I'll take you down on the side tour and shut you a scone and a coffee. Hey, I mean, it's one thing to hear about the services, it's another to go in and get the feel, because we sell the feel, not the knowledge. Eh? So yeah, if you guys are keen, come and get the feel. Pages Road down in Wainoni. Yeah.
Cool, so this is, the Connect Bar website at the moment. You want to speak to that page?
Yeah, so this is the idea. So when you scan the QR code, it'll bring you to this page. And so register your place for Connect Bar as a hotspot. So this is for services that are keen to host a sticker, but don't provide the mental health support. So that we can have services like that. All we need is more services out there to say, yes, we are here to help you. And you don't have to be a clinician or clinical. And so this is the idea. You'll come here, land on here, and then as a young person or an adult scans the QR code, all of the services will then drop. And then according to your need, hopefully we'll cater it into the categories, whether it's physical, social, mental, or finance related, because we know that not all suicide attempts is linked to mental health needs. Eh? There's a lot of issues now with recession. So apparently now what's sad, social factors is massively contribution factor. And so for us, it's we don't want to overload this with mental health services, because what a food box from MSD would fix it. Hey, and so this is the landing page here. Questions?
And we'll just finish with.
Yeah, well, I'll leave you one question, a question that really impacted my life when I was asked, and someone had asked me this. He goes, if your suicide attempt had not failed, how long has it been since we've lost you? Oh my God, broke me. And then he said, what have you done in that time since we've lost you? So I had kids. And so for me, what dawned on me was that life just wants a rest. It doesn't want to stop. And so how do we as a community build life, promote life, and how do we expand it? So that's my whittle to you guys, whānau. Together, let's all be part of the solution. Kia ora.
Fantastic. Thank you, Chair. Well, kia ora te whānau. I'm Tim Butcher, CEO of Stepping Stone Trust. I've been there in that role for about 6.5 years. Prior to that, I was working in the Specialist Mental Health Service of the DHB for 33 years. So, I've been working in this field for a very long time. And there I was mainly involved in child and adolescent mental health and also adult specialty services. So over here in Stepping Stone Trust, which was founded in 1994, and it was a time that many community services came into existence around that time with the deinstitutionalisation of hospital-based services, particularly the likes of Hill Morton. But this was a global movement, which most famously started in Italy, actually, in the province of Trieste, where the Director of Mental Health Services decided that they're going to close down all psychiatric hospitals and care for people in the community. Now, no other area has been as bold as to undertake that. But it would be fair to say that there would be a lot of people that would say that psychiatric hospitals do a lot of harm. And that, as my friend was talking about, just the importance that we all have a role to play in building a community of resilience and support for one another, because if it's not you or me today, it might be next week that actually we are having a mental health crisis. So it's not someone else. It's just a matter of timing and circumstance and the social determinants that just could tip us, any one of us, over the edge. Yeah, we've been around since 1994, and is this going to work? We have quite a wide range of services. We're based sort of more on the southwest of Christchurch in the Spraydon area, but we, unlike most of the other services, we have quite a lot of residential services. So we'll go into those in more detail. But that's one of the bigger differences for us. So in our adult residential service, and this is already slightly out of date. So Stepping Stone Trust was founded by a chap, Graham Reid. And Graham was a dad with a wife who experienced very severe bipolar disorder, and they had 2 kids. And his wife, Carolyn, was in and out of Hillmorton regularly. And this was at the time when, hospital-based services were being closed down or greatly reduced in the number of beds in hospitals, and people were going out of the community. And at that time, there was no real thought given to, well, who's going to look after folk in the community when they leave hospitals? So he felt quite abandoned, and was a real struggle. And so he went to Spraydon Baptist Church, which is now Southwest Baptist Church. And so this became a community ministry of Southwest Baptist Church, or Spraydon at the time. And so it started off with a group of volunteers getting hold of a home, and those volunteers providing somewhere, sort of like a respite service for people to be overnight with some support. And by, things have grown considerably to where we are today with a workforce of over 200 staff. And we have services in Dunedin as well, and they're quite wide-ranging. So these are some of our homes that we have. So we've got 51 contracted beds for adults. So they're folk living in a wide range of homes across the city. So we've got them Sawyers Arms Road and Avonhead and St Martin's, and quite a few in the Spraydon area. Some of the folk that are living in our homes have very enduring mental health challenges and are really severe, that are unlikely to ever live independently in the community, but we give them the best quality of life and the maximum independence we can in a fully staffed house with rostered staff 24/7. So we have a few homes with folk that are, very unwell. Who was it? It was you, Tyler, talking about. It was Julie Sparks at the beginning talking about Equally Well as an initiative. So the Equally Well initiative is really identifying that it's very easy when we're caring for people with significant mental health challenges to focus on the mental health challenges. The reality is that a lot of people, particularly who have been hospitalised for a very long time on psychotropic medication and so forth, have very impaired physical health and may well not be able to articulate their physical health needs, and it can really go off the radar. So I was just furious this last week. We've got an older man in one of our homes who went to hospital on Friday, has been diagnosed with stage 4 bowel cancer and is unlikely to last another week. And that is in spite of the fact we've taken him to GPs multiple times over the last year or 2 years with various complaints that were not given the kind of due weight that you would normally give a person who complained of those various physical complaints that he was around, constipation and various other issues, that if it had been you or I going to a GP, I'm sure that those concerns would have been given greater gravity, tests would have been done, abdominal x-rays would have been done, and that would have been found much, much earlier in the piece. So it's a real issue that our people are dying of physical health issues because they're not being well enough monitored and picked up on earlier in the piece. They might have so many voices going on in their head, for example, that they don't actually articulate what's going on with their actual physical body. So it's a real concern. Anyway, we have quite a few in long-term care, but we also have quite a few who might be with us for 6 months, 12 months, who we are able to help get back on their feet and move on to live a really satisfactory life and rebuild their lives. So we have a lot of people with quite severe and enduring mental illness, psychosis and other severe disorders. Didn't need to go that far. We also, as well as our general adult services, and that 51 beds incidentally has grown to 60 because at the beginning of this year, we took over another smaller mental health trust, which you may have heard of, Sarona Community Trust. So over in Hoonahey. So late last year, they came to us and said, we're too small to survive in the modern era with the increase in compliance requirements and various other things, and the relative sinking lid on funding for residential services. They couldn't survive, and they asked if we would take them over. So we did that early this year, and so they had a 9-bed contract, so we've taken that over. But as well as our general adult beds, we have our adult crisis respite service. So that's a 13-bed contract we have that operates from some homes over in Spraydon. And that includes 2 with a focus on alcohol and other drug challenges. They might be waiting to get into a residential treatment program or some other such thing as that. But that's staffed 24/7 with a mix of clinical and non-clinical staff. And we get referrals 24/7. They might come straight to us from ED. They might be considered to be a reasonably brief crisis event that does not necessarily need to go on to Hillmorton Hospital. So they might stay with us for 3 days at a time in that situation. So they can be really quite unwell. And then we also have this amazing home in Westmoreland, which is quite a mansion. That's our planned wellness respite service. We have a 6-bed contract for planned respite. So people who are really struggling to maintain their well-being and mental health may well be eligible for a respite prescription, you might say, from their GP, and commonly that might be up to 28 days a year of respite. So they could come to a service somewhere like this. As you can imagine, it's got spectacular views out over the city. It's a beautiful home. It's really special. So they might be able to come there for 3 or 4 nights at a time with up to 5 others. And we've done that on a community, on a cohort model more recently. It used to be just anybody could come any day of the week or whatever, but now we have two days a week on which people come and go. And by doing that, then when people come, they know that they're going to be with the folk that are in the house for 3 or 4 days, and they think, well, that's worth investing in building relationships with, and they do that and they connect and whatnot, and they take those relationships back out into the community and form some mutual support groups between visits back to planned respite. But as well as a time of rest and support, it's also a time to reconnect with some of their recovery skills that they learn in other parts of our programs and so forth. So it's that. In our youth space, youth residential and respite service, so we have a contract for 12 youth residential beds and 1 youth respite bed. So a little bit fluid as to whether one or two of them are respite beds or residential, but we've got capacity there for 13. And that's for young people between the ages of 14 and 19. As you can imagine, it's relatively unusual for them to be at that younger end of the spectrum. And they may stay with us for many months at a time, depending on what's going on. So our residential services and are gate kept by the Specialist Mental Health Service, so they're not self-referral, but they come through there. And we have a very close working relationship with CAF services, or Child and Adolescent Family Mental Health Services of the DHB. We work closely with them. So these are folk in this home who, maybe not that far off from otherwise being in the Child and Adolescent unit, which has recently moved from Princess Margaret a couple of weeks ago to their new facility at Wharton. This is possibly slightly irrelevant to you folk. This is something we've got going on in Dunedin. So we've been developing our services in Dunedin, which are residential. And this is for folk who have a complex set of needs around their mental distress and intellectual disability or neurodiversity challenges. And so we have taken out on a lease on a whole new cul-de-sac of brand new houses, which is up there in the top corner. So it's 14 homes, all brand new. The housing stock in Dunedin is shocking. I thought, it's really old, cold, and of course, being so hilly, accessibility is a real challenge for a lot of people who we look after who have mobility issues as well. So we're pretty excited about this development. So we're currently occupying 6 of the homes in the cul-de-sac. Another one will be ready in a fortnight, and on towards May of next year when the whole cul-de-sac will be built. And we've got quite a waiting list for folk to move into that. Actually, they're coming from all around the country because of such a desperate need for providers who are willing to look after people with such complex needs and high challenges. So we're pretty excited about stepping up to the plate in that space. It's not the only place we have in Dunedin, but that's our big exciting one at the moment. We have, so that's sort of moving away now from our residential and crisis, room-based services into our community services. We have our adult community team. So that's 13.2 full-time equivalents of staff working in the adult team. And within that team, we have a sub-team, which is a peer-led service. All the workers there are peer specialists, so we train them in intentional peer support and other peer modalities and models to support people from their own lived experience. So we support those people all over, well, it's an exaggeration to say all over Canterbury. There are some other providers, such as you folk, who cover down in Ashburton, for example, and other places. Comcare do some work up in North Canterbury as well. So we're certainly Canterbury-wide, but we also penetrate into Darfield and a few other places like that. And out of the adult community, I'll get to that in another slide, I think. Right. So we also have a mobile medication service. So we're supporting roughly 60 people in the community who our staff will visit them up to twice a day, either in the morning and or evening, just to help them take their prescribed medication correctly, on time, and that simple step, which is not a vast investment of time and resource, actually ensures that they stay living quite effectively and well independently in the community and are stable. If they didn't, they'd be back in and out of hospital all the time because they get destabilised. So we just recently got some additional funding to expand that service, so that's really cool. And so we're looking after about 60 people across the wider city with that program. Our youth community services. So we've got 5 FTE of non-clinical youth community support workers and 5.5 clinical. So that's broken into 2 pieces. There's the general youth CSW team and the youth mobile team. The youth mobile team works with young people who are quite commonly in crisis, on the edge of crisis and on the edge of being back in hospital. And we are supporting them to live their best life possible in the community with pretty intensive support. And so, as you can imagine, we work very closely with CAF services in providing that service. So they all need to also be under the clinical responsibility of CAF services. And then also within that team, I mentioned earlier that the founder of Stepping Stone Trust was Graham Reid, and he had his wife Carolyn. So we also have a service line which is the Carolyn Reid Family Support Service. So this is named after Graham's wife. The Carolyn Reid Family Support Service used to be a separate trust. We took that over several years ago as part of the Stepping Stone whānau. And it's what the acronyms there, SPHC is Supporting Parents, Healthy Children. And COPMEA is Children of Parents with a Mental Health Challenge or Addiction. The COPMEA language is like 20 years older language, and SPHC is more modern language. But essentially, it's supporting whānau where one or both parents have a significant and enduring mental health challenge, which is impacting the children and the whole whānau welfare. And so we run camps for them, and we run teen groups and children's groups, and we do a lot of home visits and things like that to support those whānau. So it's not a big resource that we have for that, so we can't help a lot of people, but it's like 20 odd whānau that we are supporting with that service. Then we have a range of other sort of youth-orientated services. So Mana Karere is one, and so one of the things that I guess is, as the community we all experience is we're constantly talking about the access barriers to getting support and help. And you may recall the 2019 government budget was called the Wellbeing Budget, right? And the government said they're going to put $1.9 billion over 4 years into mental health support. I don't know if you remember that. But a lot of people have been holding the government to account on that promise. So you thought, well, where did $1.9 billion go? Well, $455 million of that money has gone into a nationwide new service, which is under the wider umbrella of Access and Choice Services. I'll talk about that more broadly in just a moment, but there are a number of subsets of the Access and Choice Services, which is about primary mental health and addiction services at the front line. So you guys are part of that, Wakatapu, and there are 7 providers that are part of the general adult Access and Choice program, and that's about putting 3 different roles into general practice. Health improvement practitioners, or HIPs, which are provided by the primary health organisations like Pegasus and so forth. They employ those roles, the HIPs. And then the likes of ourselves in our Wakatapu and Comcare and several others, we're involved in providing health coaches and support workers as part of that initiatives in medical centres. So there are 7 providers, NGO providers, and each of us are going to be building up. We're getting towards the top of that total now of averaging about 6.7 FTE each. So that's about 42, no, it's closer to 46 full-time equivalent workers focused on supporting people with their mental health and addiction challenges in primary care, right at the front door in general practices. So that's one of the biggest things that the government has done with this money, with the $1.9 billion wellbeing budget. So that's still being rolled out, but this is the 4th year coming up, and we're getting close to reaching those peak totals. So, and that's for supporting adults, but then there are other identified subgroups who are not getting adequate access and address the equity needs that they have. And those subgroups include youth, rural people living rurally, the rainbow community, Māori and Pacific peoples. And so as well as that general access and choice initiative and partnering with medical centres, there are some additional subgroup targets. So I think, I don't know if you guys got a separate access and choice program for Māori under this. I know Purupura Petu have. I don't know if you guys have or not. I know you're part of the general one with us. But anyway, so there are some specific Pacifica Māori programs, and then a significant youth one. So this top one here, Manu Karere, is the Youth Access and Choice program. And they're not inside medical centres, but so there are a group of 7 of us who are part of the Youth Access and Choice program, supporting schools, supporting school counsellors, brief intervention work. And so we've got about, in total, 15 FTE under that program working across Canterbury in partnership, a collaboration of providers delivering that for youth. And that's up to age 24. So in addition to that, we have another program which has its own website there, Reframe Wananga. So this is co-designed with youth peers, particularly working in schools and other community locations, providing a range of recovery tools and providing relational support to young people in educational settings. So we work with a number of schools to provide modules, training modules and support modules in school for young people how to look at, if they're grappling with anxiety, skills and tools to manage your anxiety, but right through to a variety of other things like how do young people deal with climate change? I mean, this is a massive anxiety, issue for young people. So we have modules and workshops on, managing our climate anxiety or other specific topics and things like that. So at the moment, that team is doing some work over the school holidays out in Rolleston, with the youth hub out there, for example, working with a number of high schools as well during term time. We have another program which is this is a very exciting new development. So we developed this program in conjunction with the Anxiety Disorders Service at Hill Morton, and it's a community program that's sort of psychoeducation and skills based around helping support people who really struggle with their emotional regulation, such that their emotional regulation may get them into trouble at work, where they might just lose their cool or fly off the handle, put their job in jeopardy, but right through to suicidal ideation, through to self-injury and putting themselves at risk through those sorts of things. So it's a 12-week program. This is accessible more easily than some of our other programs. So GPs can refer to this. We're getting a number of people being referred by ACC or Ramatamariki for parents and adults. But it's having a remarkably beneficial effect for a relatively short-term intervention. 12 weeks, once a week, 1.5 hour program, and that's very exciting. So we've got some additional funding for that to increase capacity for that program. And so we're going to be able to run up to 4 groups at a time, and that includes up in Kaikoura. So that's pretty exciting. So we've got training going on later this week to bring in some more facilitators, and that's again a collaboration across the sector. A number of providers have staff who put their hand up and said we'd like to be part of this initiative. They're coming along to do the training. We hold the funds, we coordinate it on behalf of the sector and help make these things happen. So it's pretty cool. We have our Barnett House Recovery Centre. This is a wonderful old home over in Spraydon. As you can see, it's got some very cool old world 1920s features and polished timber floors and all sorts. It's really cool. So I've got a number of programs that run out of there, including art classes and a community choir for people who are struggling with their enduring mental distress and so forth. We run peer zone workshops, which is a whole suite of over 50 recovery skills modules that we support and train in. Some of those we do online as well. If people can't come in person, they can join on the program online. Lots of different things like that. So we have great plans for this general site here. I haven't got a slide of it, but we've bought 4 titles of land around Barnett House. So it's on one of the pieces of land, but in total we've got an acre of land there in Spraydon we're looking forward to developing. And we've got a whole scheme plan there for a social housing village specifically supporting women with enduring mental distress, including women coming out of prison, and also in our community who are just really struggling and need a real safe place to build a community. Barnett House will stay. We've got plans to expand that and develop it as an adjunct service to what you guys were talking about, the one you're doing with Puruwhetu. The crisis response, this is I've got in mind here, a living room concept, which is self-referral. Well, you don't even refer, you can just turn up. What the system lacks at the moment, among other things, is people who are in distress can go to ED and wait in a very crowded, noisy, risky environment for hours and hours, hoping they'll get seen. Or they could get referred to crisis respite. Or they could not have anything that's immediate and go on a list and hopefully get a community support worker. But actually, most people know themselves quite well. And there's a whole cohort of people who says, I don't need to go and stay somewhere for days on end. Who's going to feed my cat? I could probably be fine and go to work in the morning. But right now, at 3 o'clock in the morning or 2 in the afternoon, whatever it is, I am dangerously unwell and at a risk to myself. They might self-injure, they might lie in a pool of blood and they might die. I'm not joking, I'm not trying to exaggerate, but these things happen just for the lack of somewhere to go where they could have some company, get some connections, some support, some activities, and it might only last for 3 hours. And then they start to come right. They're past an episode of acute, dangerous unwellness. That's what a living room project is designed to do. And so we're looking forward to developing that here at Barnett House in due course. So those are some of the things going on at Barnett House. One of the things that I'd really encourage you to consider doing is the mental health first aid Te Aroha course that we offer. This is for the community. it's an international course that was developed originally in Australia in about 2001. It's now in more than 25 countries around the world. More than 4 million people have done the course. And it's been adapted to New Zealand, to our, it's got further to go, but there's a standard version which we offer. And just last week, finally, after some considerable wait, we've now got a specific youth version. So this is for anybody who is working to support youth. It might be sports coaches, school teachers, youth group leaders, all sorts, anybody involved in supporting youth, but the standard one is for everybody. So we really encourage you to do that. You can look on our website and see when the next courses are, but we run them about every month. We can take up to 20 people at a time to do the course. It's 2 days of education. It's substantial, and it's really looking about how do you, rather than if you see somebody in acute mental distress, rather than thinking, I'm sure I've got something else to do, and not engaging, actually gives you the confidence and the skills to actually engage with the situation. You may well save someone's life and help to figure out how to steer them in the right direction and support them. So it's very cool. It's a lot of content, a lot of education. And we've got some financial support to offer that program. So depending on your circumstances, if you are working in an unfunded NGO, for example, we can provide it free of charge. If you're working in a corporate business, we'll charge you, and somewhere in between. But we're really keen to support that.
I've done the course. I highly recommend it.
Thanks, Joe. We have another program. Now, this is getting a little bit away from mental health per se, but we have a collaborative contract with Purupura Whetū and Odyssey House. We do quite a lot of collaborating with them. This is our Ngāi Mahi supported youth accommodation program. It's a contract with the Ranga Tamariki to support young people coming out of state care as they don't fall through the gaps, but actually help them build an independent adult life with skills and so forth. Pūpema Waiora is the group name I mentioned before about the HIPS, health coaches and support workers in general practice. Some of these are maybe a bit tangential. That'll do. Happy to answer any questions.
It's blown away the scope of the work that you're doing. It's so broad.
Yeah.
And you're funded through?
99% of our funding would be through Te Whatu was CDHB, except in Dunedin, where more of our funding is through ACC and the Ministry for Disabled People of Whaikaha.
It's very interesting, isn't it, that the discourse out in the community is that nothing's happening, government's doing nothing, funding nothing.
Yeah.
In fact, it's just extraordinary what's actually.
It is, it absolutely is. There's an enormous amount going on. Hundreds and hundreds of people and millions of dollars really going on to try and make a difference. And I'm sure you guys and your staff are the same, just bending over backwards with incredible passion and care to help people rebuild their lives after very difficult events and circumstances and challenges. And yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Tim. That was a big part. Unfortunately, but it's good to know that people will be sent throughout the internet. I know everybody wants to have a little shake around and another cuppa and another pit stop, and then we'll move on to our final presentation. Then we'll invite you to stay for some lunch and networking.
Kia ora koutou. So I'm Emily, and as I said before, I work at Te Mana Ora, which is part of the now National Public Health Service, but people are probably more familiar with us as being part of the CDHB, but the community focused. So part of my work has been basically promoting mental health and wellbeing to the community in ways that we can support ourselves and also support others. It's not so much a it's more of a, I guess as a health promoter, we do a lot of work that is sending messages to the whole population rather than doing so much like one-to-one work. So if you think about the services of that mental health providers provide, it's almost like a spectrum where lots of things happening on there, like you've heard this morning, and health promotion is at one end, and then we've got face-to-face, counselling and services at the other. So what I'll be sharing today is just a quick overview of what mental health is, because as much as we use the term more and more these days, there's a few misconceptions around it. But as I go through these slides, I want you to be thinking about kind of how you might be able to use some of this information with the people that you're supporting, but also yourself, because it's hard to do, but important to practice what we preach so that we're looking after ourselves too, to be able to support others. My first question though is for you all, when do we think about our health? When we're sick, yeah. And it tends to be when we're like physically unwell with something. So you might have a cold, or you might injure yourself, and then we start to think about the things that we could be doing to try and make ourselves better, but also what we perhaps could have done to prevent, well, I know we can't always prevent certain bugs, but to keep ourselves well and avoid illness and injury. So it's not very often, it's becoming more common, but it's not very often that we think about our mental health as something else that we need to look after. To the point that a lot of people don't actually, some people wonder if we have mental health. Mental health is commonly misconceptualized as mental illness. So I remember doing a workshop at Bunnings where luckily before the workshop, lady came up to me and said, "Oh, my brother has mental health," and I felt like saying, "Oh, wow, yeah, my brother does too, and so do my friends, and so do I." Like, it's just understand the difference between mental health and mental illness. Mental health, just like physical health, is a resource that we all have and we all need to look after. And it's just a definition, I guess, to pick that up. So it's not, it's not like it shoots a slide or two away. It's not like we're on a spectrum where you either have good mental health or you have a mental illness. That's the definition of what mental well-being is. I'll give you all a chance to read that. So there's a lot that goes into it, which is represented on this slide. We're talking about that spectrum. So you could have a diagnosed mental illness, but you can still be flourishing. You might not have a mental illness, but you can still be languishing. So it's, if you think about it in terms of like our physical health too. So well, the easiest one I can think of is, for me, I've got a chronic respiratory condition that I've had it my whole life, so I don't know any different, but I'm still, I can be sick with it, but I can also be really well with it. So it's not, if you or supporting people with a diagnosed mental illness, it doesn't mean that they can't be flourishing, and that's what we want to be supporting all people to do, whilst also being realistic that in life it's very normal to be having ups and downs. Cool. So I want you all to turn to one another and share something that makes you feel good, makes you feel happy.
Yes. I think we're gonna be waiting.
Has everyone had a chance to share what makes them feel happy? All right, can I hear back from a few people? This is always the hardest part of the presentation, to get people back because it's shows that we all know that there are different things that make us feel good. So can some people share what makes them feel good?
On the beach.
Nice.
Sun, yes.
Sun, yes.
Those bleak grey days.
Yes, like yesterday.
Budding fruits.
Nice.
Budding
Yes.
creation through spring.
Lovely.
Feel good.
Connections with others.
Lovely.
Yeah, my kids.
Cool. So there's like so many different things that make us feel good, and just because something that makes one person feel good doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work for someone else. So it's understanding that we're all, what we like to promote is that we're all experts in our own mental health and well-being. And we really need to take time to recognise what does support us to feel good, and to try and do more of that, but also understand that well, for me, for example, I love doing woodworking, but the sound of a drop saw might not be someone else. Probably the neighbours who aren't so happy about that. So it's finding what works for you. Cool. Now, this is a framework that a lot of you are probably familiar with. I have hands up if you do know the 5 ways from me. Oh, good. Sometimes I get everyone's hands up, so it becomes more of a refresher session. So this is good. We can start from scratch. So the 5 ways to wellbeing, they're a framework that it's been developed internationally, and it's based on evidence of they're all evidence-based tips on what can make us feel good and look after our mental health and wellbeing day to day. The key to these 5 ways is that it's when we build them into our everyday lives that we're going to have the most benefit from them. It's not just about doing one of these things once a week. Of course, it's better than doing none of these things, but it's about trying to build small actions into our everyday, actions that are achievable, and especially when we're working with people who might be in, might have quite a low mental health state, that we can work with them to find some really small tasks that they can do. These 5 ways are also designed to be kind of universally relevant and accessible to people within across the whole world. So regardless of how much money they might have or where they are in the world, these are hopefully accessible. But as I go through them, it's also about slightly bringing your own interpretation to it as well. So the first of the 5 ways is to connect. No problem here, going by the chatter that we just had about what makes us feel good. And out of the 5 ways, it's probably the most kind of self-explanatory that, you know, connections are good for us. And the really important part in what we, you know, takes a little bit more investment in is maintaining relationships. So, you know, I guess COVID would put us to a big test with that, about how we can stay in touch with people, keep relationships going when usual means aren't available. And part of having those strong relationships is so that we then have a good support network that we can go to, reach out to if need be, and vice versa. So connection could be as simple as I guess going along to something like this, having a chat with someone out in the library, talking to a person at the supermarket, the checkout, asking them a question that's not about the weather, but something, you know, some other conversation topic that they might not get to have much that day. So it's connections, I guess, maintaining and nurturing those connections that we have with people already, but also taking chances in our everyday lives to connect with others. And that includes, you know, it can be as simple as saying hello to other people, which, you know, you think is a simple thing, but it, yeah, we lose some of that sometimes. So it can be as simple as that to engage in. The next of the 5 ways is to be active. You know, you're probably all aware that physical activity has good benefits for our physical health and also our mental health, and that it releases endorphins, and you know, it's got a lot of benefits. But when it comes to thinking about being active for our mental health, it's not so much about, you know, the activity we do, it's just making sure that we do some sort of active activity. So it might be something like gardening or even housework, perhaps getting a little dance in while you're vacuuming, making things a little bit more active. That's going to have a boost for your mental health. And again, it's about taking people where they're at. For one person, it might be that they have to do their 10K morning run. That's certainly not me, but for others, it might just be, you know, getting a brief stroll out in the sunshine when it's here, or just, you know, taking a breather. So it's really, as it says there, do what you can and enjoy what you do. The next is to take notice. I guess mindfulness is be a similar word that we can think about in relation to this. So really stepping back and taking notice of the world around us, which can be incredibly hard to do. If you drive, how many of you have driven home, pulled up in the driveway and thought, oh my gosh, did I run through every single red light? Have you had that experience? No? Oh. Well, I have, but I know it's kind of a example where, you know, we might just be, we're not as, this is going to make me sound like a terrible driver now, but we're not as focused on what we're at the task at hand. Our mind might be drifting elsewhere, and we are of course still responding to those red lights and driving carefully and things, but our minds are just distracted. So yes, exactly. So that's, for me, a classic example of when I know I'm not taking very good notice. But it can be, you know, we don't need to go and shut ourselves in a quiet room and do a mindfulness session for half an hour. That might work for you, or it might not. I find it really hard to do anything like that without letting my mind drift. So it's, when we talk about take notice for our well-being, it's a small things like driving to work today, noticing a car just completely covered in blossom, which was beautiful. It had obviously been under a tree, and unlike my experience last week of having clearly birds above the above the car, this is beautiful to just see a car basically be pink. So that's an example of taking notice. Building it into your everyday activities. I think we heard from Youthline about the example like a skincare routine someone does at night. You know, it's something that you do every day. You could build in just a small mindful step, like doing 10 mindful breaths before you do that skincare routine, or when you brush your teeth, saying a positive affirmation to yourself and so on. So lots of different ways that we can build mindfulness and taking notice of the world around us into our everyday, and especially important to do when you've noticed that your mind is drifting away, that yeah, we can bring ourselves back into the moment. Part of the work that we do is making tools accessible for people to be able to engage in each of the 5 ways, for example. So I'm going to introduce Harata up to introduce us to Hikatea Taha.
This way you need to.
This is where I need the video, yeah.
Tihei Māori Ora. And we've all heard that before, have we not? What do we know about Tihei Māori Ora? It is a common expression in Te Reo Māori. It acknowledges the life of breath, and it is expressed at a pai during a kaipaka arongai by kōrero near Mihi Mihi. It refers to the Māori creation story when the first human was fashioned with clay in the form of a wahine. We know that the hongi represents the first exchange of breath between atua and tangata. I just want to really acknowledge everybody this morning and the ha that we've shared, the whakaro, the thoughts that we've shared. We've come into the space as one, and it's not an easy space to work in. And so I just really wanted to acknowledge. So it's easy to fall out of sync, just like what Ms. M over there has said, and with our natural body functions, and I'm talking about our breathing. So we get into the space where, so for me, I've had a really traumatic weekend this weekend, and I've noticed that I can't breathe. I'm going through the motion. So I just want us, before we go to the video, I just want us to take a moment. And what I'd really love you to do is I'd love you to breathe in through your nostrils and tell me what you can feel. And then, of course, breathe out through your nostrils. Breathe in. You breathe out. Feel calmness? Which parts of your body do you feel moving? So for me, I feel my hoku moving. I don't feel up here where we try and breathe. I can't breathe. So we've all been given techniques of how to breathe. And one thing that we've learned, that breathing brings calmness. Tihei Māori Ora. Just want you to know that that is also the force, the life force to life. And it's also expressing, I am alive. So, kia ora. Just wanted to share that. Right, so back down to business. Hikatea Taha. Hikatea Taha is a series of simple te ao Māori breathing exercises that anyone can learn, focusing on our breath, calming the body and the mind. It is a helpful practice for feeling more present and mindful. Hikatea Taha was developed by Rawi, last name? H-I.
Hindle, I think.
Hindle,
yes.
Not very good at that. So we just want you to take a moment to have a look at the video. You might notice where we are and some of the people in it, but when do you need to ha ki roto, ha ki waho? And it's more than just, we know that the breath is more than just
breathing in and breathing out. So kia ora koutou, please.
So that's the brief feel for one of the many resources available on our on the All Right website, which oh yes, the slide, thank you. Which you might be familiar with the All Right campaign. Earthquake specific campaign that we ran in Canterbury for many years up until last year when the funding wrapped up. But yeah, Hikatea Taha is just one example of many resources on our website, which can help you to learn different techniques to support your own mental health and wellbeing, but also to share with others. And with Hikatea Taha, there's a few different versions. There was a Tai Aha, but there's a Tai Chi one, for example, which you can go in the comfort of your own living room if you want to, or perhaps suggest it to people that you're working with. Cool. So, oops. Sorry.
I might have to turn
There's two more ways to wellbeing, which I'll share about, but I'm sure you're all taking notice of the smell of the lovely guy, so I'll wrap it up quickly. But yeah, the fourth way to wellbeing is to keep learning. I like to think about learning as being curious with the world around us. Learning can have that connotation that we need to go back to the books, back to school or some form of education to learn. It's actually about just being curious with the world around us and seeking out new experiences. So even playing board games or doing puzzles, that is an activity which we can learn from and helps to stimulate the brain. So for Mental Health Awareness Week last week, we had we've now got some board games in our office for people to do on their lunch breaks and things, just as an activity to do something a little bit different. Obviously, a lot of the services that we've heard from today, there's heaps of activities that people can come and engage in as well. Lots and lots of different things to have a go at, but also thinking about hobbies you might already have, or something that you want to have a go at. So I mentioned before about my woodworking hobby. a lot of that is trial and error, but it's just an example of where you're constantly building on skills that you have, and then get to a point where you're able to share those skills with others. So you start to see how some of these ways to wellbeing start overlapping with each other, in that woodworking for me is a great way for me to keep learning and to be mindful of the noise of a drop saw. But it's also an opportunity now where I can connect with others with similar hobby. The last of the 5 ways is to give, which when we did the round of introductions of our roles, it sounds like you're all in very giving roles. So again, another way to wellbeing that I perhaps don't need to explain too much, but it's about, it's not so much giving things, but just giving our time to others or to different organisations. It could be something like volunteering, but it's also, when it comes to boosting our mental health, it can be as simple as, smiling at someone, having a chat with someone in the staff room that you might not talk to often. Like these really small acts that, to appreciate it. When we don't do those, then you can start to notice that they're impacting. So I guess the more that we do these smaller everyday acts, the more collectively they contribute to our own well-being. And of course, for the case of Give, we're supporting others. The really important thing though is that we don't, if we give to someone, that we don't kind of hinge the experience based on that person's reaction. Now I'm really going to sound like a driver who has road rage, which I don't, but if you're driving in traffic, you let someone in and they don't acknowledge that you've let them in, it's easy to get frustrated, being like, I let you in, you could have at least waved. But it's more important to just, remind yourself that you did something nice, and that's that. You don't need to, think about the reaction of the other person. So it'd be the same in other examples where, giving to people, it might not always seem like it's received. Just keep giving. Of course, in roles like yours, so making sure that we're giving back to ourselves too, that we're taking stock of where our own mental health and well-being is at, and looking after ourselves. So that's the 5 ways in a very brief nutshell. To say all of those 5 ways are evidence-based. There's a lot of countries who have used them as frameworks to promote good mental health. So there's a lot that you can find out about them online. But I just wanted to acknowledge that there's other ways to support our mental health and well-being. Just some examples here: culture, faith, nature. More and more evidence about the benefits of getting outdoors and enjoying green spaces, which we're lucky to have a lot of in New Zealand, but if you think, some other countries, and to, obviously good nutrition. The reason these aren't in the 5 ways is because they're not necessarily as universally accessible to everyone as the others are. And just want to finish up on the importance of small steps that, some of the examples that I've shared can seem really trivial, like, smiling at someone as a form of give. It is about those, really small steps that we do every day, and building these 5 ways into our everyday in a way that they are manageable. So starting small is the most important thing, and finding ways that work for you to build them into your everyday. So that's it from there. Are there any questions?
Well, can I just add another plug for the hub for the green? I just want us to remember, and I'm not telling you already know all this, but it's just a reminder,
A new breath is a new thought. A new breath is a new energy. A new breath is the start of something. So I just wanted, this is a little example because a lot of us have forgotten how to breathe, and it goes you could try this in your own comfort of your own home, but someone says, take a big breath. Take in a big breath, and they say, let your breath out, let your breath out. That's it. But take a big breath in, let your breath out. More breath. That was all in just one breath. So we forget that the breath that's kept within us, that's stay alive. So how can you have a new thought on something staying from us? Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou koutou.
Thanks so much, guys. That's great. I think you're right. We're usually in these types of roles, you're so busy rushing around taking care of everybody else. You actually stop, you don't take the time to stop and just, okay, yeah, right, reset. So I won't waffle any longer because I can smell that food and, you know, thinking about mindfulness, my mind was in the wrong place. Thank you so much to everyone for coming today. Thank you to our presenters. We really appreciate you spending the time sharing with us and that sort of thing. And thank you to those who stuck in here for the whole session. That means there's twice as much food for you. So if you don't stay to eat and network, feel free, please, to take some on the go as well. So thank you all for attending. Thanks a lot.
Feeling like